When I was walking, I saw a parking spot that said reserved for the head ball coach. And it was a blue Buick, to answer your question, 4-door, with 2 visors in the back window, a blue and a white one. And so I felt pretty confident that it was his car. And I said, okay, well, if I can't, I wasn't sure if I was ever getting anything to him, right? You didn't know who was filtering out the mail. You didn't know who was filtering out the resumes. But I knew if I stuck it in his windshield, there was a good chance that he would at least get it. And then I just kind of made it an activity for myself. So it was close to about 400 notes over the course of about a 1.5-year span that I would go there, leave a note, go there, leave a packet, go there, leave a magazine article, go there, and just kind of something that I felt would have some interest, relevance, or a chance for him to call me.
What would you do? What would you do to chase and achieve your dream? Would you leave 1 note on somebody's car, 10 notes, 100 notes, couple hundred notes? That's exactly what Jedd Fisch did. Jedd Fisch, this week's guest on the Yogi Roth Show. He is in his 2nd season with the Los Angeles Rams. Right now, he is the assistant coordinator of offense, and he's one of the most talented coaches, I believe, in all of football. Hi, I'm Yogi Roth, and thank you for joining the Yogi Roth Show podcast. We try to bring you insight and unique conversations in the world of sports, specifically football, in college football season, anywhere you can get them around the globe. I really appreciate you listening in. This week's guest, as you heard a little bit in the open, that's Jedd Fisch. And you probably know the name if you follow college football, because Jedd Fisch is a relatively household name if you're a football nerd, because he's that guy that's so close to getting a head coaching job. I've known Jedd for a long time. We talk about the night that we met when both of us were with the Seattle Seahawks. He took a job there. I was interviewing there. We went out to dinner. And since that day, we've stayed connected throughout his run of the NFL, major college football, and now back to the National Football League right here in Los Angeles. And I truly think while it's only week 1 in the NFL and week 1 just concluded in college football, we're always going to be talking about who's going to be the next head coach. And I think Jedd Fisch should be at the top of every athletic director's list. I know him as a man. I know him as a family man. I know him as a ball coach. And to me, he's big, big, big time. So that's Jedd Fisch. I think you're going to really enjoy the conversation. In this conversation, I'm really pumped because we got a great partner in this conversation, and it's Kona Red. If you've been listening to these podcasts, and I appreciate it because we've had a major uptick as college football is here, you know how much I love my morning Kona Red coffee. Check them out at KonaRed.com. And Kona Red, if you don't know, well, it's the best coffee on planet Earth because they source some of the rarest, most sought-after coffee on planet Earth. And it comes from the volcanic mountain slopes of Hawaii. Yeah, that's why it's called Kona Red coffee. I love it. And they have all types. They got premium coffee beans, cold brew coffee. They have these little cans that my wife and myself, we absolutely love. And they even have a juice, a Hawaiian Cascara juice. And they're really proud to partner with us. And I'm really proud to partner with them because I think coffee is a catalyst to conversation. That's exactly what Jedd Fisch and I had as a conversation over a cup of coffee at his house in the preseason. And I saved it for this week specifically as you're thinking about the NFL and, of course, the Rams, or they go back to the Super Bowl, as well as, hey, who's up and coming in the coaching ranks for your favorite college football program? I'm getting out of the way. This is one of my favorite guys in all of ball, Jedd Fisch. Oh, and the podcast continues. We love going on the road here for the Yogi Roth Show here. And today we're in Hermosa Beach, ocean behind us, but luckily for us, in front of us is Jedd Fisch. Jedd, we've known each other for a really long time. You've coached all over the country, college, NFL. You're currently with the Los Angeles Rams. Thank you for taking the time in your offseason to spend some time with us.
Oh, it's great to be a part of your podcast and be here back in Hermosa. It's been amazing. It's been amazing how long we've known each other. I mean, I can't think of, I think probably 2010. And when I was in Seattle is when we initially met. And it's been great.
Dude, I can remember that first night. I believe it was near one of the hotels, like the team hotel in Seattle, and where you have dinner in a restaurant that's one of those restaurants on like the rooftop. And it's Jeremy Bates, you, me, Pete, I think Mark Jackson was there. And we ended up sitting next to each other and talked all night long. And I was like, this guy's awesome.
I do remember that. I remember exactly. I think we were at Daniels.
Yeah, there it is.
I remember correctly. And and then of course, obviously, with your relationships with Pete and Brennan, and then Brennan and I coaching together in Miami. I mean, our friendships and paths have crossed so many times, and it's great to be a part of this and have you at our house here in Hermosa.
Okay, so we got a lot to talk about because I think you're fascinating in the coaching profession. So I want to ask you first and foremost, I think your story as an offensive mind and as a future head coach is really well known and documented. You're rumored for all the jobs every year. But the origin story of you, to me, is fascinating because it's not like you had a famous dad who played in the NFL or you played in the NFL, retired after being some glorious quarterback. I mean, you were playing tennis in Jersey. I mean, where did your love for this game even begin, let alone the vision to coach at the highest of levels in the sport?
Yeah, it was an interesting path. I would imagine that not many have taken this route that I took. But what it really came down to is this. I had my mom was dating a guy for years that was a head football coach at Bergen Catholic High School. And I started as a ball boy. And I was the ball boy there, and I was probably in I don't know, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, kind of in those years. And we were winning a lot of games. It was a lot of fun. And I was like, man, every time we come home after we're watching film, and I started becoming infatuated with it. And then, then you go to high school, and my dad was a college tennis player. So I kind of grew up playing tennis. And then I thought maybe I could have a career and play college tennis, go be a lawyer, call it a day, And then next thing you know, I was like, I don't want that. I want to be a football coach, and I have to find a route to get me there. And it was kind of the long, winding road to do it.
I don't want that. I think that's a really powerful phrase. When you said that, did you say it out loud? Did you say it to yourself? And I come from the background of, I said I didn't want that too. Law degree, took my LSATs, like all the things that, you're kind of guided down the road. If you're like a straight and narrow kid, you should go do this and you'll have a great life. And I was like, man, F that ain't great life according to me.
Right. And that's kind of where I was too. And I just really, I called my dad up. My dad was an attorney, and my brother was in law school at the time. My mom was a psychologist, and I kind of said, guys, I'll obviously go do everything I can to be successful as a professional in something. I said, but I don't want to do the career path of being an attorney, and I want to go coach football. And in order to do that, I'm going to kind of need some help and support more than anything to try to accomplish this goal and dream. And fortunately, everybody in my family was fully on board, and they said, hey, if you can do it, go ahead and try it.
Okay, so what year did you graduate high school?
So I graduated in 94, class of 1994 in high school, and went on and applied to one university.
Yes, and that was my question was going. Why did you choose Florida, and what about it lit you up? Because you were on this singular track, which most college kids, they kind of walk in, they're like, I guess I'll take a bunch of electives and kind of figure it out because I really don't know what I'm doing.
Right, and it was, my senior year in high school, I took an independent study for 12 credits, and what I did was work with our head football coach and designed a spring football clinic and wrote a book on youth football. So the path was kind of set, and I knew what I wanted to do. And really the best thing that happened to me is my dad said to me, he goes, if you want to do this, we don't have any connections. We don't have any family ties. We have no experiences in this profession. What I recommend doing, and this is my dad speaking to me back in 1993 at the time, he said, find the college that has the coach that you want to emulate, the coach that you want to be like, and the coach you want to work for, and apply to that school. And at that time, it was Steve Spurrier. And that's where I applied.
Okay, so a lot of us might say, okay, this guy applies, he goes to Florida, Steve Spurrier. Okay, he probably just walked in, got a connection, and next thing you know, he's coaching for the Rams. And I read this, not sure if it's accurate, but I read you left over 200 notes on Steve Spurrier's car. Not just like 200 notes to his assistant or somebody in the front desk,
right,
but like you had to identify whatever he was riding. So I'm curious what ride he had. And then what are these notes even saying?
Well, it's actually, that part of the story is very true. There's actually a little bit prior to that. My first move was to apply to be an equipment manager. So I actually was rejected and was not chosen to be an equipment manager. And I think I kind of originally thought you just show up and you say, I'm here to volunteer my time, and who wouldn't want volunteers? Well, I learned later that there were no volunteers at that point in time. So I'm like, okay, there has to be another approach. So I sent a very formal letter with a resume that I'm not sure had anything on it, but it was a resume, and that didn't get really welcomed. And then I sent a couple notes, random, the traditional way. And again, really nothing back. And then one time I got an autographed picture of Coach Spurrier sent back to me, which I still have. And I'm like, okay, not what I was looking for. And I was like, there's got to be another approach. So I walk up to the office and I asked to have an appointment with him. That didn't go over well. There was no appointments available. But when I was walking, I saw a parking spot that said reserved for the head ball coach. And it was a blue Buick, to answer your question, 4-door, with 2 visors in the back window, a blue and a white one. And so I felt pretty confident that it was his car. And I said, okay, well, if I can't, I wasn't sure if I was ever getting anything to him, right? You didn't know who was filtering out the mail. You didn't know who was filtering out the resumes. But I knew if I stuck it in his windshield, there was a good chance that he would at least get it. And then I just kind of made it an activity for myself. So it was close to about 400 notes over the course of about a 1.5 year span that I would go there, leave a note, go there, leave a packet, go there, leave a magazine article, go there, and just kind of something that I felt would have some interest, relevance, or a chance for him to call me.
So out of those 400, like from note 1 to note 400, did you ever meet him? Or he's just like showing up at his car every day?
No. I saw him a couple times, but that was when he was just walking out to practice, and I was trying to grab him at that point, but nothing. Then I went and coached high school. So as the notes were progressing throughout my sophomore year, I felt maybe this wasn't really going the way I was hoping. So I went and coached at PK Young High School. And that's kind of where the notes started getting a little bit more substantive. And we had some recruits. And I actually was recruiting him to recruit our players so I could meet him. And in turn, it wound up working out. And I think, as he says, I never went away, so he just let me go in.
So what was the first conversation like with him when he finally brings you on to be a part of that staff?
Well, it was really not with him. When I finally was approved by him to be in the building, I was assigned to other coaches. So really the 2 guys that took care of me originally were Buddy Tevens and Dwayne Dixon. And Dwayne Dixon was a wide receiver coach, and Buddy was our running back coach that year. And then kind of just found my way around, and then built a very close relationship with Noah Brandeis, who was our GA, and Sammy McCorkle, and then John Hoke. And that group of us, I just kind of started becoming one of them without their choice, and you just started getting projects that people didn't want to do. And that's where Coach Spurrier finally, the real conversation that once occurred was, he said, after spring ball, our second year that I was there, he said, why don't you come on a rafting trip? And he said, why didn't Jebba come join us? And when I got invited to come join the rafting trip, I felt like I finally made it, and it was like, wow, I do have a chance in this profession. I can now go rafting with the Gator coaches. And that moment kind of really started everything.
One of our mutual friends is one of the top high-performance psychologists on planet Earth, definitely in sports, Michael Gervais. And last summer, we're with the Elite 11 quarterbacks, top high school kids in the country. And, he always comes in and does a session with them, which is amazing. And in one of these specific sessions, he said the following quote: "At the core of optimism is resiliency." And for me, it was like a huge aha of like,
that's great.
I'm always called like, oh, you're really positive. Oh, is that real? Is it fake? Is it whatever? And I'm like, no, like it's real. And then when I heard like it's rooted in resiliency, then I was like, that's the walk-on on me. That's the guy that'll study all night. So I wonder for you, like, to get rejected a lot sucks, but to get rejected the way you did without even necessarily being acknowledged, I'm sure was another thing.
Right.
Did you recognize your optimism? Were you optimistic, or were you just programmed that, like, I am mission-minded to get into this profession?
I think I was probably more relentless than optimistic at the moment. I don't know if I ever felt that. I never felt it was not going to go away. I always thought that opportunity was going to come. I just wasn't sure how it was going to come. And so I felt as if I found every angle possible, that something good would come my way. And it was more of that approach of not thinking daily that this was going to work out, thinking daily like it had to work out. I mean, I chose this school to work for Steve Spurrier. How could I not be working for Steve Spurrier? I decided I was going to coach football. How could I not be coaching football? And that is really where the root for me was. And then I just felt like every day when I got there, just enjoy every second of it. Yeah. And that was the optimism. That was like, now I'm here. Now I want to be the person that I always wanted to be the guy that when people were around, they felt he is really enjoying his moment.
Yeah, I could say that you're that, whether I've been around you in Seattle or Miami or UCLA or now at the Rams, you make the room right. And I think you've always kind of had that vibe. So I asked that on the heels of you then go to the league. And I can remember being a kid being like, oh, there's this new team in the NFL. Like, how do you do that? And I've come to learn from you that you do it in like a trailer and then you try to just start. So how does that happen for you to get into the league in an upstart profession and now all of a sudden, as an upstart professional, now all of a sudden you're in the top level of the craft?
It was crazy. I mean, it was as crazy as you could imagine it to be. That it was 2001. There was no NFL team. They declared the Houston Texans the 32nd team. Met Dom Capers at the Tampa airport. He was looking for somebody they could pay $20,000 to. I said they could have paid nothing, but I didn't tell him that at the time. And that would be willing to just come to Houston and help. I think the job was kind of considered a quality control coach. We didn't have anyone to coach. We had no players. We were there for a year without anything. And it was Chris Palmer, Dom Capers, and myself were the three of the coaching staff. And then Charlie Casserly was our general manager. So we go there, and when I tell you that was the greatest experience, every Sunday, Dom doesn't have any kids. And every Sunday in the fall, it was the very first year of the DirecTV NFL package. And every Sunday I'm sitting there on his couch, the head football coach of the Houston Texans, sitting on his couch watching football all day from noon till the Sunday night game ended. And there was some struggles in the morning at times. And it was, but I was coming in there and full steam ahead. And for 9 straight hours, just sitting there watching ball with Coach Capers. And it was the greatest opportunity of a young coach's life.
So describe for those that aren't aware, like the grind of the coaching profession. Because you're in it and you guys are probably starting from the ground floor. And I'd imagine you're sleeping in the office, just doing whatever it took to get a program off the ground.
Right. It was very interesting. Early on, we were in an office building, like just in the middle of nowhere. We were looking at some construction. We had a cubicle. I had a cubicle connected the wall to his secretary. The cubicle connected to Chris Palmer's. It's not, our equipment manager was 2 cubicles over, trainer. So really what it was early on was so much ground zero that you were just trying to understand where we fit in, right? We didn't know what conference we were in. We didn't know what division we were going to play in. At the time, we found out later on when we were going to be in the AFC. Then we found out we were going to be in the AFC South, and they were going to realign, and then the expansion draft. And you're trying to learn all this. And then really when the grind, so to speak, started was that January when we hired the coaching staff. When the end of the 01 season, and we knew we had the kickoff in 9 months, and you had no players, you had no coaches other than the 3 of us, and I was GA from Florida that's all of a sudden now in the NFL. So it was Dom and Chris and me, and that was the grind. That's when the futon went in the office.
What did you learn about creating a culture? Because a lot of times coaches go into programs now, right? Unfortunately, at the end of this football season, a bunch of coaches are going to get let go. New coaches are going to come in, but there's a team there. There's cliques there. There's seniors that came in as freshmen there. But to see and witness the highest level of competition with 0 players, curious what you pulled from that of how to build a culture, eventually when you get your opportunity.
It's really it's a great question because there's so much that you start seeing that, and fortunately over these years, and we'll get to it and we fast forward to it at some point, is that I've been around 7 guys in year one. And but this year one's different. When you have no players to pull from, you have no background to pull from, you have not one person has ever been a teammate with another person. Right? It's one thing to come in as a new head coach, but 70% of your roster were teammates the year before. 0 were teammates before here. There was no history. There was nothing. And Coach Capers was in the second go-around of doing this because he did it at Carolina too. So he was the first ever person to be an expansion head coach twice. Wow. So when you listen to him, and I tried to probably take as many notes as I could, but yet wish I took 1,000 more, because obviously early on you don't realize how important note-taking is. It was not just establishing the culture of winning, but it was establishing a culture of discipline, a culture of respect, a culture of how to represent the city of Houston that did everything they could to bring football back, to represent Bob McNair, who wrote the largest check at that time for $700 million in 2001 to buy a football team that's then building a brand new stadium. And it was all of these, and you're listening to Dom speak about the attention to detail. So if there was one thing when that all ended that I recognized, was there was no stone unturned, and he really helped all of us as coaches that were on that staff develop.
One of the words, there's only a couple words I don't like in the world of words, and one of them is perspective. Because often we hear when somebody dies or somebody gets fired, like, man, it just gives me great perspective. And I've dealt with that at a personal level. You've dealt with that professionally, personally, I'm sure, as well. Mm-hmm. And I've always wished that we can compete to live with perspective. That's really hard to do. Most coaches I've been around, when they get let go for the first time as head coaches, that's when they're like, usually at their best in their next job.
Right.
You were awkwardly blessed from my lens with a health scare that gave you perspective in your 20s versus getting let go in your 40s or your 50s. A, is that accurate? And B, how did it shift the mindset of a kid from New Jersey whose only focus since you were in high school writing that book on youth football has been to be in the football profession, and then you were in it when you had a health scare?
Sure. Well, in 2003, going into our second playing season in Houston, going into our third year in Houston, I had an aortic dissection, and which really, for the most part, is a vascular disaster, so to speak, one in which that traditionally is extremely life-threatening, and traditionally you don't live from it if your aorta dissects. I was fortunate, and the reason why I say fortunate was everything that happened to me leading up to that day allowed me to live and be here today. If I was not a football coach, I would have been dead. There would have been no team doctor. There would have been no team trainer. There would have been no one that would have been able to quickly diagnose what happened to me, because of the fact that I was able on a Sunday at 2 p.m. call a team trainer, who then called our team doctor, who then came over, who then brought me to the emergency room, who then came back at 1 o'clock in the morning and diagnosed an aortic dissection, where by 6 a.m. they said I would have been dead if I stayed at home. If I wasn't in Houston, I would not have survived, because the number one aortic surgeon was in Houston at the time. And if it wasn't for football, I know that I wouldn't have had all those opportunities. So that truly is the biggest perspective that I have, that the gift of the game allows my family and I to be able to do what we can do. So therefore, I feel like every day is a gift to give back to the game.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did you have to change, or have you in your career, have you had that moment where you're like, man, this game's consumed me in a way that maybe isn't healthy? It's to give you the lens to now be like, hey, the way I approach is with the ultimate pursuit of happiness, the ultimate pursuit of joy in the craft. Or are you still in it? And that's okay too. I mean, there's no right answer here.
Yeah, I would probably say more than anything, the perspective that I've received is try to do as much as possible for as many people as possible, and not give up on it and not give anything away in terms of I probably spend too much time at work or am too all consumed with football. But then on the same token, I try to be as consumed as I can with my family. But there's always that race to get something done because you know that health scare can always occur again. And you know that life is short. I know that's a strange saying, but we all know it's true. And that when at 26 you have that awakening, you feel like, well, I don't want to miss this opportunity, right? And you're like, I don't want to not give everything I have to Sean McVay. I want to give him everything I have because he's given me this chance to stay in this game and this gift of football. And then on the same token, obviously, with 3 kids and a wife and a family, you want to give them everything because they've given you everything they have to allow you to do it.
Yeah, that's a great way to phrase it. I can remember being young, and I got to be around Coach Carroll in my early 20s, kind of like you and Coach Capers. And one of the biggest things he taught me was just to create value and not really be worried about the next job and the QB job and the OC job and maybe an interview. Like he was just like, dude, whatever you do, just create value. And I bridged from that because then I asked him, I said, well, how do you do it as a family, man? Like, how do you do that? You know, we were projecting out like at some point, you know, I'm getting married in a couple weeks. And he said, you know what? It's not about being at the Little League game for the whole game. It's about fighting your tail off to get there for the last inning versus say, I'll probably be late anyway, so I won't go. And that really stuck with me as a young kid.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think that the fact that I worked for Pete as well, I could relate to some of these stories, and that Coach Carroll gives it an incredible perspective on so many things, and he makes you think. That's the one thing that, you know, when you walk away from working for him, that I felt is that there were so many messages that he gave that maybe at the time I didn't appreciate, but as the years have gone on, he just has really brought it back. And one of those things is the be where your feet are, right? And really recognize, and I could promise you that I have not done an incredible job of that in the past. And I think all of us want to have our aspirations and try to go get certain things. And really what comes down to it is it comes to you if you create a tremendous value for where you're at. And then the other part of it is that, and I thought it was the analogy you just made about Little League, or the story you just said, is so true. I can't be at everything. My kids recognize that. But if I can make it to something, or if they, you know, the beauty of FaceTime, or the opportunity to make sure that when you are able to do it, you do it. Yeah. And that's really the key part of, you know, this profession, because it is crazy.
So speaking of this profession, I think sometimes, I'm curious your take on this, we hear different phrases around coaches. One is, he's a great coordinator. One is meant to be a head coach. What are your thoughts around like the archetypes that some coaches get dropped in? Because you're a guy who's coached, I mean, let's just go through some of the names. Dom Capers, Billick, Mike Shanahan, Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh, Sean McVay. I mean, you've been around some great leaders as a coordinator, as a position coach, as a co-offensive coordinator, as the interim head coach with Jim Moore after he was departed at UCLA. How do you feel about just coaches getting typecast sometimes? And what do you think you're typecast as? Because every AD I talk to is like, you are on this trajectory to become the leader of some program if you choose to.
Well, I think that we all have there's always stereotypes, and there's always perceptions. And then, of course, there's the reality, right? And what is the true reality of where you should go, where you can go, and then what kind of trajectory are you going to go on? In this profession, I think that what it comes down to is that we have unbelievable opportunities to lead men. And that is the coolest part of this whole thing, right? And the opportunity to do that, whether it's a position group, whether it's as a coordinator, whether it's as a head coach, really what you want to do and what I want to do is to be able to influence and impact others. And that's where I think we have that opportunity in leadership to do that.
So speaking of some of the others, I love looking at some of the guys that you coach, right? From Hasselbeck, who we both love, to Josh Rosen, who we both love, to Jared Goff, who we both love now with the Rams. There's this phrase that I'm in love with called the iGen, which is this generation. They grew up with an iPhone, right? You got kids, you know what it's like. How have you seen a shift from the type of learner that the dudes are, right? The quarterbacks, Hasselbeck to, say, Goff, for instance, and everybody in between. How have you noticed a sway, if there is one, in how they learn? And how have you adjusted as a teacher, if you've had to? Or are these theories about how people in this next generation learns completely bogus?
Oh, no, I don't think it's bogus at all. I've read the book iGen that you recommended to me. And I think that you have to make your teaching compliant to the generation you're coaching. I spoke at a clinic 15 years ago called Be Y2K Compliant as a coach. And I think that as the years have gone on, you can't just be Y2K. Everyone's Y2K compliant at this point, right? It's what are you going to do now to stimulate growth, to stimulate their ability to learn. Your job as a coach is to help them be great. That's your job. The best coaches are the ones that help your players achieve the maximum that their ability allows them to achieve. That's the ultimate job as a coach. And to do that, you might be a visual learner. Somebody else might be an audio learner. Somebody else might be a I need to do it learner. And some might say, I want to look at it through, virtual reality. Somebody else might say, I need to be able to be on an exosystem and be able to have my hand on the remote. And as a coach, it's our jobs to recognize that and then to help them perform at their highest, at their highest level. And then with that, give them parameters. Give them parameters that you could kind of say, hey, I'm willing to do this. If you're willing to do that, I can kind of keep you in this area of your learning curve and help you become the best. And I've always told college kids my goal is to watch you get drafted and get invited to your wedding, because then you impact them personally and professionally.
Do you think that it's hard because you've done this, you got an offensive system. You got the Jedd Fisch offensive system, the plays that you want to call, that you believe in. And then let's just say you got a quarterback that maybe doesn't fit that skill set. Is it hard to say, you know what, he's probably not going to be good at the stuff I have mastery in? Let me get good at what he's got mastery in or potential for?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's very difficult at times. And then you then take a deep breath and you look at it and you say to yourself, but that's my job. And my job is to figure out a way that it's not about what I know. It's not about what we as coaches know. It's not about anything other than making sure that the player, can do it and do it the best of his ability. And Josh Rosen is going to learn different than Jared Goff, who's different than Blake Bortles, who's going to be different than Stephen Morris and Ja'Cory Harris. And, there was a time that I won 9 years, 9 quarterbacks. And each guy is going to learn things differently. But, yeah, it's a challenge for a coach, and it's a challenge that we should embrace because it's an opportunity to teach.
What have you noticed about what do players want? If you stood in front of them and you had to be the genie that kind of was like, this is what they want. You've been in 9 quarterbacks, 9 years, right? Let alone all the teams you've been around.
I think they want honesty, number one. They want great communicators, number two. And then they want somebody that's going to help them get better. But if you're not honest with them and you're not a great communicator, you're not going to be able to help them get better. Sean McVay, who was a unreal communicator and unreal teacher, says we're not just a believer in open and honest communication. We're also a believer in ongoing communication. That we can't just tell it to them once. We can't just be open and honest once. We have to have an ongoing line of communication that we are consistently telling them why and what we need from them and why we're asking this of them.
I finally got to meet Sean, and I've been confused for Sean many times whenever I have a little scruff or beard in L.A., which is hilarious. But for you, again, every guy that you worked for, from Spurrier, Capers, Billick, Shanahan, Pete, Harbaugh, they're all older than you. Then to work for somebody that's younger than you, what is that like?
I'll tell you, I used to be the youngest guy in the staff for a lot of years. It's been game changing. It's been on our staff in the Rams. I'm like one of the older guys on the staff, which is fascinating that Sean is such a young group. Luckily, we have Wade. But it is, to be honest with you, he's so smart. He's so good. He is such an incredible communicator. Age is clearly just a number when it comes to Sean. that, yes, he's 33, and I think that allows him to have a certain connection with our players in an incredible way. But we subscribe to a player's first mentality. Oh, there's no question we do it. Our guys recognize that. They recognize that someone like Sean is always going to go above and beyond for our guys because he recognizes what they need. And I recognize what they need more and more from being around Sean. So, yeah, I've been with some great ones, and they are great at what they do. And, you have a Super Bowl with a 67-year-old Bill Belichick and a 33-year-old Sean McVay. So I think both work. And, hopefully I'm 43 right now, and hopefully you have a chance one day to be able to impact guys in a totality. But until that point in time, you have a chance every single day to learn from the best.
I can remember I'm trying to think of the year, you know better than me, but whenever you were in Miami with Jacory, we're there doing a doc that never aired with the ESPN, which is another podcast, unfortunately, because it would have been awesome. But I got to spend a month there in training camp, was around you a lot. And I remember when the season ended, I think it was that year, the year after, but, Pitt had an opening. And I remember we were trying to push to at least get you in the door, right? And I think you're going to be an awesome head coach. If you had a head coaching job 10 years ago, let's just call it then, 8 years ago, compared to now, like, what's the growth been like for you? Like, if you look back, like, were you ready for that? I mean, you would have ripped it and gone for it, but truth be told, how do you feel when you think back on those years?
It's funny. We were having this conversation this morning in our office with a couple coaches, and it's, when do you know you're ready, right? You've coordinated, you've coached a position, so you have to be ready, right? You have to be as ready as you can be. And then you recognize, or you go work for another head coach, and you're like, oh, I wasn't ready because that guy's really good, and if I had to play him, I'd be in trouble. And what I really learned is, since that time, after the Miami in 2011 and 12 with Jacory and Steven, now you're talking about a situation where you have Jim Harbaugh in your life, you have Sean McVay in your life, you have a chance to be an interim head coach, you have Jim Mora, who's a 3-time head coach, and working for those guys, and you're Gus Bradley coming from Seattle system and implementing a brand new system. So from that moment, it was 2 year ones. It was a year one in Jacksonville. It was a year one in Michigan a few years after that. And then it was a year two in the Rams. And you recognize the importance of not just the word culture, right? Because I saw a funny thing on Twitter where like 42 basketball coaches all said the word culture, right? It's a matter of, how are you going to implement a culture? And what do you want your culture to look like if you have a chance to run your own program? And that really is the key.
So that type of lonely work, I know you subscribe to it. What does the culture look like at Hermosa University when they start a football program and you're named the head coach?
Well, I think first off, it looks like it's an opportunity to produce professionals. We want to be a part of a program that we could help them in every way possible to get to their ultimate goal. And to do that, I'm just a subscriber to a relentless pursuit of happiness. I feel like that relentless aspect of it, because that's how I got in this profession. And I never want to lose track of what it takes to try to be great in it. But I also feel every day, from the blessing of surviving to the privilege to go to work every day for Sean and the LA Rams, to have had the privileges to work for guys like Pete, like Jim, like Brian, like Mike, those guys. I mean, we're talking about the elite of the elite, coaches that have won Super Bowls and national championships, that how can you not be happy every day? But it's really going to be one that I hope that we can really form that winning culture and that winning web, and recognize that every day, if you can be open and honest, communicate with one another, and do it in a manner that they believe in you and you believe in them, you got a chance.
I can remember when when I was at SC, it was a launching pad for coaches, right? Everybody left for like more money, head coaching jobs, coordinator jobs. Some turned them down, some took them. And the same story rings true for everybody that took a job. Ed Orgeron went to Ole Miss, Lane went to the Raiders, and some of these are secondhand stories, so maybe they may be inaccurate, but fundamentally it goes something like this. I'm going to leave this tree, and everything is going to be basically a replication of what Coach Carroll did. Cool. Until we lose. And then I'm me. And what those guys have said in hindsight was, man, like, it was a shock when I look at how the players dealt with me as the most positive, upbeat replication of Pete to who I really am when things got hard. So I'm curious for you of like, because when I hear you talk, I'm like, God, you just seem grounded. Like you said, be where your feet are before. And I subscribe to that T-shirt and rock it often. That being said, do you feel as though like finally like for somebody who's you've moved a ton, man. Like I don't know what the number is, but it's crazy. I'm sure your wife would be able to rattle off very quickly. But it feels as though like you're really grounded in, yeah, like this is what it's going to look like. And instead of like chasing it relentlessly, like I prepared relentlessly. And when it comes, like look out.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is this, and you know Yogi better than anybody, that when you read Pete's book and when you're around Coach Carroll, you recognize that he'll say the year between the time with the Patriots and the time he went to USC is when he did the deep dive. And when he found himself in a manner that he was like, this is what I want my program to look like. So to leave his program and then just try to be that, then the persons that are doing that didn't take the deep dive. They took Pete's deep dive and then took it. For me, it's been really over these course of these years, I've been trying to go from I like this way, I'm going to be like this, to I like this way, I'm going to be like this, rather than what do I like about each guy? What can I take from each guy? And then how can I really be me? And the interim head coaching job really finally, I'm going to say, put me personally at peace. That it was an opportunity to get in front of a group of guys, to give them everything I had, to watch them embrace the culture that we tried to have for 7 weeks and enjoy every moment of it. And really there it was, okay, now what? Now, where do we go in life? Do we pick up? Do we move? And it was, no, we're going to be what's best for our family, what's best for the girls, what's best for Amber. And in turn, it ended up by going to work for Coach McVay, it ended up being best for everybody, including me, of course, in that regard, that he is such a star that he helps you every day kind of really create your own culture in your own mind and recognize the values that he brings and recognize the messaging that he gives, but in the same token allows you the freedom to have that open and honest and ongoing communication with him, that each day we're also helping build that culture.
I think that's really strong, man. I mean, and for those that don't know, you move out from Michigan, offered every other job. You can Google it if you want. Jedd Fisch, offensive coordinator. You come to UCLA, think you're going to be here for the long haul. Coach Mora gets let go. You're not even living in Los Angeles for a calendar year, and it's here we go again, which is your profession, which is exactly what has happened to you in other instances, and you've chosen to leave to go to different schools. And you say, you know what? No, I'm not going to be the big headline name. I'm going to stay in LA, do what's best for my squad, my family, and I'm going to take a job as an analyst with the LA Rams. Not the sexiest of choices, not probably the most money we see coordinators making right now. And that's like a real cool humility, at least for me. And I've known you for a long time, like we referenced. But I think even on the outside, it's like, wow, you didn't go, race for the next thing. Was that hard, or was that?
Sure,
Yeah.
It was. Parts of it was always difficult in terms of you're always looking, right, for what's the best thing for your family. And sometimes you lose track of material isn't the best thing for your family. Or sometimes you lose track of, thinking that what's best for your family, and then you take a step back and you're like, wait, what's best for our family is right here. What's best for our family is exactly what we're doing. And, I can't be more grateful to the Rams and to Sean. He created a position. There was no position on the staff, and he then was then able to create another position at the end of the season. And to do that, it was really so good for all of us. And I think in turn, I didn't know we were going to go to the Super Bowl, nor did I have any clue that it was going to turn into being around probably the brightest offensive mind in football and being around somebody that's going to enable his coaches to grow. And then not just put you in a position to learn, but embrace, what you know, and then embrace collectively how you're going to help the entire organization, continue to grow. And it was like, it was a gift. And that's the first thing that Pete said to me. When I saw Pete at the Combine, he said, "I'm so happy for you." And I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Because you made a great decision." Mm-hmm. And it means a lot. There's certain guys in your lives that, whether you've been around them for a year or whether you've been around them for 10, that they're strong mentors, they're great mentors, and they're people that we all strive to be like. And one of those guys is Pete. Yeah. And, when Coach Carroll can say that to you, you're like, you know what? I did. And then when this year came to an end, and didn't end the way we necessarily wanted to in terms of the final game, but when you could have perspective and look back and recognize the gift of the game came back again, the chance to be a part of this and continue to be a part of it and see a bunch of smiling faces when I get home, and then a bunch of people that make you better every day at work, it's a privilege.
So good. Yeah, I flew up to Seattle a couple weeks ago because I was like, Pete, I need some time, and we just went to work, man. He just, how he can get.
Oh, yeah.
He just coached me on, because I'm about to get married, or on, competing, of course, to, make it work, whatever you got to do. And you're right. Some of those people, I think we kind of, as athletes or people in the profession, you always want to get coached. It's cool to get a little reinforcement. So that being said, last couple questions for you. I want to know for you, because you talked about him being in a relentless pursuit of happiness. I'd like to know for you, what sparks the most joy for you?
That's a great question. I'd say the smile on my kids and my wife's face, probably after a game. So I think it's twofold, right? It's watching their joy that comes out after we have success. And I think where I appreciate so much of them in that regard is they know how hard we all work to be successful, we collectively as a family, because every minute you're taken away from your family to coach, your wife's doing double duty. And every time you're taking away from your kids are growing up quicker. So the joy that the end result with the score on top comes, the family joy that brings is something that I take incredible pride in and love. And then the other part is the impact on a player. When you hear back from a player is probably the other thing that brings incredible happiness. When Matt Hasselbeck sends me a text, when Eric Decker calls, when Adam Weber calls, when Wilton Spate calls, when you name Eddie Royal shoots me a direct message. Those are the greatest moments, because these are guys that you had the privilege to be around in 2008 and 2006 when Kyle Bowler comes back and works a football camp for me at Michigan, 10 years later, who went to Cal, right? Because you were around him when he was a rookie. That brings such joy, because it's a chance to rekindle a relationship that you got to form and build.
I'm stealing this question from Oprah because she asks it all the time at her podcast. She says, "What do you know for sure?" I'm curious for you. What do you know in life for sure?
That everything I've done up until this point, I've done to the best of my ability. And after that, there are no guarantees.
And so now, as we think back on the kid in Jersey who left 200 notes, who, oh, by the way, had John Gruden's resume on his mirror in the bathroom. I don't know if it's still up there. I haven't looked in your bathroom.
No, not anymore, but
it was up there for a while.
It was up there for a lot of years.
Okay, so you think of all that, to all the jobs you've had, all the moves you've had. Now here you are in L.A., being where your feet are. What is it now that you're seeking?
Knowledge. Constantly. It's funny. I drive to Thousand Oaks every day from Hermosa. So for all of us that live out here, we know, it's a 60-mile drive and it's not 60 minutes, right? So depending on the time of day. And I've totally embraced it, because the books on tape that you get to listen to, the podcasts you get to listen to, the knowledge you get to learn on these car rides have become the greatest gift I could ever imagine for a commute. So today, that's called a 3-hour commute there and back, and I was able to get through about 7 chapters of the Culture Code. I was able to listen to about 3 chapters of Gridiron Genius. And you get to listen to and it's just constantly soaking up knowledge. And if I can continue to do that, that's all I could ever ask for.
A lot of coaches and aspiring coaches will listen to this. How do you organize all of that knowledge? Because you've got binders, I'm sure, for days.
It is a great challenge to be able to go through what you learn and what you hear and not make the last thing you heard the most important or the best thing you've heard. And to remember, wait a second, 3 days ago when I was listening to the book Relentless by Tim Grover and talking about, the guy who trained Kobe and MJ, and saying, wow, I love what he's saying about being a cleaner, about being a closer. And then you hear about Culture Code and you're listening to something else. And wait, don't forget what you loved about a different book. It's constant note-taking. It's constant prioritizing. And then really it's deep dives, personal deep dives and thinking and talking and saying, what's best in terms of who do I feel like I can relate to the most, and how can I relate that message to as many people that want to hear it?
I'm going to put you on the spot. You don't have to answer it. Assuming you want to be a head coach, why are you suited now for that craft versus, you're up for a head job every single year, at least according to the internet. Why now, or why in the next year or so do you think that you're ready to go do that job?
Well, I don't want to speak out of both sides of my mouth and talking about how excited I am to be here every day and what a privilege it is to be a part of this organization. But what I can say is from the time that I've entered into this profession, and then from the experiences that we as a family have been able to have, both geographically, both in the professional level and the collegiate level, with the coaches that we've been privileged enough to surround ourselves with, there's a constant learn and a constant knowledge growth that you hope one day you can share that knowledge with others. And I feel like more than anything, I am becoming better at sharing. And hopefully in that regard, some group of players one day I'll be able to share it with.
Yeah, I hope so too, man. You're going to crush it. All right, we ask everybody on this podcast the last final question. We've done over 100 of them and have had 100 different answers. So how do you feel finally about the word limits?
I don't believe in them. I don't believe in limits. I think there is, you create your own. So if you don't want to create your own and you want to have an endless path in front of you, behind you, and to the other side, then that's kind of how I like to live my life and try to have our kids do the same.
I can only imagine how stoked your parents are from supporting you, bailing the law degree, to chasing a dream, and now it's a real career. You've done it for over 20 years.
It's been good, but there's got a lot of years left to come. Oh. Hopefully I could do it for a long time.
Just getting warmed up, and here we are on the podcast as well. Jedd, we appreciate the time, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
That's Jedd Fisch. Many more conversations. Go to yogiroth.com/podcast, and you know how we end this podcast. The same way every time. That the only limits that we have in life are the ones we set ourselves. Peace.